along with my partner, Terry Conrad or Terry, depending on how you know him, and Rosa, we run Tree of Life Veganics, which is a veganic agroforestry farm in Faversham in Kent, or near Faversham in Kent. And it's quite small, we have nearly 6 hectares. And we've been busy recently harvesting, a bit like Matthew, harvesting lots of squash and carrots and perpetual spinach, and planting lots of things in for the winter, ready for spring. So, and also sowing a lot of heritage cereals as well. So in amongst our alley cropping system. So that's us.
Thanks, Joe. Excuse me. We've had a whole host of technical hiccups this evening, so you have to excuse the odd error or 17. Joe didn't have any voice earlier, and yeah, but we're getting there anyway. So we'd like to introduce our third guest this evening. It's Graham Burnett. Hello, Graham.
Hello, Tony, and everybody else. How are you?
Good. You?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. All things considered.
Absolutely, yeah. So, what have you been up to? Busy as always?
Yeah. Since the lockdown, obviously our vegan permaculture course has gone online, and that's actually working out quite well. The latest one is fully booked. We'll be starting another one in the spring. Apart from that, involved in lots of kind of community projects around here where I live in not so sunny Southend-on-Sea. Yeah, we obviously had to close all our community garden projects, some of which were only just starting up at the beginning of the last lockdown, and it's taken a while to kind of get them up and running again, particularly as some of our kind of clients and volunteers are kind of quite vulnerable and quite frail. Well, we just about felt confident to kind of get the gardens running up again, and now they're all shut down again. So there you go. So back to square one, but hopefully we'll get something up and running at the beginning of December or early next year. But but anyway, been very busy, and yeah.
Cool.
That's me.
Well, yeah, it was very frustrating for you, and of course the weeds are obviously doing nothing all this time in all these places, are they? So yeah, very nice.
Yeah.
But while I was searching for some pictures of you, Graham, I found out you have more talents than just permaculture.
Oh.
I'd like to live under a tree in a permaculture garden in the shade. Till Morrison knows where we've been in a spiral herbal garden in the lane.
I'm sitting
on the video.
I'm sitting on the very same sofa, but we painted the wall green now, as you'll see. It's not white anymore. Anyway.
Oh, right. Oh, big difference. Excellent stuff. But yes, I'm sure we'll enjoy that later. Right. So let's see if we can get some multi people up at the moment. So here we go. So let's go to the first question, which in fact is going to be this one here about onions. Our onions are always disappointingly small. How can we grow larger onions? Very good question. Would anyone like to take that up?
I'm happy to make a start if you like, Tony. I can't remember who this question was from. Have you got the name? Or does it not say?
I haven't got the name on there. Apologise.
Okay.
Yeah.
The mystery people. Yeah, I mean, I would say really it's all about soil, but I would always say that. So, you know, what kind of type of soil have you got? It's quite useful to have the person so we can ask some questions back really. But obviously you need deeper soil. It's all about building soil really. So I think as you know, I don't know how long you've been growing, but as you go, kind of leaving organic matter. Perhaps looking at a no dig approach, using green manures, returning all organic matter to the soil, and then just making that deeper and deeper. I guess it also depends on the variety of onion that you're sowing and whether you're sowing sets or seeds. You know, perhaps if if a drought looks likely, then sow a bit earlier, and look at sowing seed and maybe overwintering instead of sowing in spring. And then, you know, watering, obviously, if it is dry, but not too much water, not overwatering, little and often. And maybe also looking at, perhaps instead of onions, looking at some perennial alliums, or is it allia? Not sure. You know, things like Babington's leek, Egyptian tree onions. You know, I don't know how these people are gardening or farming or growing, but you know, things like nodding onion, ballhead onion, Welsh onions, chives. Trying, you know, with whether that's within a food forest system or just within your allotment, in a different system. But yeah, that's what I would try. And if all else fails, try a Ecosia, and I'm sure there are some interesting people around the country who've grown giant onions, so have a look at some of their tips maybe.
Brilliant, thanks, Joe. Would anyone else like to add that very comprehensive question answer? Anyone?
Just to say, is that every year the correspondent said it's small onions? Because mine were very small this year as well, so I'm just wondering if it was just a 2020 thing. So.
Yeah, no information on that. But as you say, it just so varies sometimes, doesn't it? It could have had a couple of bad years, could have possibly a bad microclimate in that area.
Yeah. And I think another thing with onions, obviously, from the kind of like the permaculture or the vegan organic approach might be to be quite tolerant to things like weeds. But I must admit, a lot of plants that we consider weeds, in air quotes, are actually quite competitive with onions. So it's probably worth actually keeping them well weeded and well clear as well. So not letting out, where some plants kind of don't mind other plants growing around them. My experience has been that they don't do well with other things growing there at the same time. So keep them well weeded, in other words, and hoe between them quite frequently, I would say.
Brilliant, thank you. That sounds like some good advice. And I suppose there can be some things happening under the soil that we don't see as well. So there could be perhaps not enough beneficial fungi down there and other things that are causing it in this particular area. So yeah, brilliant. Anyone else like to add more to that?
Yeah, I agree with Joe and Graham there. It's great advice. I would say set off from seeds. You've got a bit more control over the process. You can use some heat and light in winter to get them going. When you do finally plant them out, space them well. You got 15 centimeters between plants, 30 centimeters between rows. As Joe was saying, lots of compost to enrich the soil, and plant them out when it's sort of 12 degrees centigrade. So wait until the end of February, probably early March, and I guess make sure you get the right type of seed if you want them to be bigger. Keep them watered.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Matthew. I've tried regrowing from spring onions this year, cutting off most of the onion, just leaving a centimetre or so in the roots. And that has given me remarkably big onions where we've used green tops. So that's another option as well. That's worked very well. So we've got one about a perennial community garden. Here we go. So we are establishing a perennial community garden in Scarborough. We have fruit bushes and trees, but are looking for a variety of plants, root, leaf and flower that we can establish for variety and interest. The soil is a poor clay, which we're gradually improving with homemade compost and seaweed. You can get a bit windy near the coast and quite dry. So recommendations, folks. Who would like to take that?
Should I have a crack on that one?
Certainly, Graham.
I think I'd kind of echo a lot of what Joe was saying about, basically paying attention, which sounds like Christine's doing already, paying attention to building the soil, because as we all know, it's, the older mantra, feed the soil, not the plant. So the more we can get a healthy soil up and running and work on that. I know the correspondent said it's a heavy clay, But actually heavy clay is actually very rich in nutrients. They're just not always easy for the plants to access because they're kind of tightly bound, as you probably know. Clay particles are actually incredibly very, very, very small and will bind nutrients to the particle. So the trick really is to kind of try and loosen up those nutrients so the plants can get access to all those minerals and nutrients. So yeah, basically plenty of organic matter, which I think your correspondent is already doing. Plenty of green manures. About this time of year, it might be good to start thinking about putting in field beans, which are very similar to broad beans, but they're a green manure that are very good at taking nitrogen from the atmosphere and making that available to other plants. Maybe putting down mustard, agricultural mustard this time of year. You might just about get away with putting maybe ryegrass, things like that are also going to kind of help break up soil and add plenty of organic matter to the soil. I was also thinking maybe things like comfrey, which will have a very deep taproot that will mine lots of mineral. The taproot goes down sometimes 3 or 4 meters and can mine up lots of nutrients like nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, and a whole host of micronutrients, and actually make those available to other plants. So putting in plenty of comfrey. And the other part of the question was about it being kind of quite an exposed site, I think. So maybe a windbreak, again, nitrogen fixing plants like sea buckthorn, things like that are kind of quite tolerant of coastal conditions and harsh weather and things like that. So, yeah, and I think, and that strategy that Joe mentioned, putting in kind of perennial plants are all going to help, build the soil, create mycorrhizal connections between the fungus and the roots of the different plants, and slowly but surely the soil will become more dynamic, more supportive of other life. I think in a relatively short period of time. Hopefully that's a few things to think about.
Brilliant, thank you, Graham. Of course, as you said, sea buckthorn there is a good use as a windbreak, but of course you get a yield as well, which is nice. If you can get a windbreak that gives you a yield, that's brilliant as well. I was just wondering about the clays. Do you know if there's a great variety in the mineral content of different clays at all, or are they all pretty much the same?
I don't honestly know. I know they are very rich in all kinds of nutrients, but as I say, the trick is actually getting those nutrients actually available to the plants. They are sort of generally, because they have these incredibly tiny particles. I mean, if you think of it like, I don't know how technical we want to get on a session like this, but if you imagine clay, a particle of sand being the size of maybe, what's that big building in London? The shard. Yeah, imagine the shard being the size of a particle of sand. A clay particle would be like you standing next to the shard. So it's an incredibly small particle. And all those billions, if not trillions, of clay particles have this amazingly huge surface area that's kind of binding so many different nutrients. But it's just the trick is, as I said, making those nutrients available to other plants.
Brilliant, thank you. And yes, who else would like to? Joe?
Yeah, I was just gonna. I mean, I had to see buckthorn as well, especially when the questioner asked mentioned being on the coast and wind, and really thinking about your windbreaks and your shelter belts first. I'm not sure, we don't know how far they've got with their food forest, but that's obviously getting your trees in, your tree layer in first, and your windbreaks and everything. Thinking about other plants like autumn olives, really lovely. And really lovely yield as well. And then the other thing I was thinking, I made a note of, was just thinking about what grows locally. Just looking around, having that time to observe, your land, but also what grows in the kind of wilder areas, what's happy growing around, and take a lead from that really, and make note and take a lead from that. What could you plant that's that provides a yield as well, and then just lists really of I just had some other ideas of lovely plants. I know Graham's got a brilliant book about food forests, and Martin Crawford as well. If you go on his website, he's got a whole list of what you can grow and what you can buy, and obviously those books available. So but yeah, I was thinking autumn olive, alder obviously is part of the tree as the windbreak, the shelter belts, sea buckthorn, and then the kind of Babington's leek again, and Nepalese raspberry. I was just kind of made a list of my favourites really. Strawberries, lots of aromatic herbs, sweet cicely, tuna sinensis, which is an amazing plant. But yeah, I think look on those websites, and you'll get a whole list of amazing plants that you can grow. But just see what's local really, I would say as well. And
can I add the Plants for Future website? That would be a really good resource as well.
We should mention Plants for Future. That's amazing, isn't it? Yeah. Thanks, Graham.
Okay.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Matthew, is there anything you'd like to add at all?
Yeah, I've got quite clay soil down the allotment, and I find that Jerusalem artichokes, I planted tubers there when I first got it, and they've gone quite well. On the windy site, they might need some staking and help, but they will provide a bit of a shelter. And also, when I first got the allotment, I put in, rhubarb and asparagus, which have served me well over the years and come back again and again. And, they're growing most soils. Obviously, as Graham and Joe said, keep working on the soil, keep building it up and making it better. And Graham and Joe said as well, put your fruit bushes of trees and herbs. But yeah, I've used some artichokes. I find very useful for shelter.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Matthew. Government health warning with Jerusalem artichoke. So if you don't have the right digestive enzymes, you will know about it. Just look it up on the internet.
What do you say?
I mean, they're great because they're kind of windbreaks. You can use them as a windbreak, but there's a kind of multiple meaning to that as well, I think. So I quite like that.
They're very tasty. They're very tasty. I had a whole plate full of chips made from them once, and I swear to God that if you put a skirt on me, I could have gone down the road like a hovercraft, and that is no joke. It was never again. I am attaching those things. So you have been warned. If you haven't got the right, is it inulase or something that will digest the inulin that's in there? So yes, we have warned you. Government health warning or non-government health warning. Right. Now I'd like to pop in. We have Colleen, who sent in a little thing for us. I'm going to ask her to come and join us and tell us a little bit about herself and the stories she sent in. So what she sent in is going to be added to our newsletter. So if you'd like to see the recipes, etc., that she's doing, please join up for our newsletter free of charge. So I'll just add Colleen. Here we go. And Colleen, how are you doing? Hang on a second. Here we go. I'm trying to unmute you here, but it's thinking about it. Okay. For some reason, we can't seem to unmute Colleen at the moment. We're getting a very poor connections, unfortunately, today. I'm not sure whether the wind's blowing the wrong direction or whatever. I'll just try one more time. Right, I'm sorry. We'll try and get Colleen later because we're just not getting any sound from there at the moment. No movement, nothing. So, right. Okay. So we're going to move on to the next question. Here we go. Goodness me, something's going very slow here. This end, it's taking forever. So hopefully it's come through for you all. Could you advise me as to what vegan cruelty-free products I can use to clean my greenhouses before insulating them for the winter months? Would something like Astonish disinfectant in water do the job? Thank you, Alison Peake. So who would like to take that?
I'm happy to start, Tony, if you like.
Thanks, Jo.
Yeah, I would just say probably don't be too enthusiastic about cleaning a greenhouse. I think a lot of the kind of conventional advice would be about cleaning everything out and even hoovering and things. But I would say, we don't want to hoover up all those cobwebs. We want to keep the beneficial insects that might be in there. But then, probably something like Astonish, something just like a detergent, soapy water, or probably the cheapest, perhaps, and most environmentally friendly thing would be white vinegar. I would just suggest for the frames, depending on what they are, and for the windows, and maybe just a little bit of lemon juice in there if you prefer that for the smell. But I would just say don't go too mad, really. That would be my advice.
Oops, hang on. Thank you, Jo. Just one thing, whatever you do, don't use sodium hydroxide on your aluminium greenhouse. You will dissolve it basically over time. So that's, if anyone suggests that, just tell no. Anyone else like to?
That sounds like it's coming from experience, Tony. You haven't dissolved a greenhouse with.
Well, when I was a
what
kid,
you said now, sodium hydroxide.
not greenhouses, but I experimented a lot when I was a kid, and I used to make hydrogen and fill balloons with them. And basically, you add sodium hydroxide to aluminium, and it just huge amounts of hydrogen come off, and you can make great big balloons, which are actually. Well, think about the Hindenburg and the R101. I got very lucky as a kid, so do not this. So, Graham or Matthew, would you like to add anything to that at all?
I'd agree with Jo. Vinegar is great, and you could just use a sort of proprietary product like e-cover to clean the windows. But the vinegar I think would be cheaper and better.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Any more comments on that? Now, Colleen's, I think, rebooted, so we're going to try Colleen again. So let's add you to the stream. Hello, Colleen. Can you hear us now?
Yeah, I can hear you very well. Can you see me and hear me?
We can hear you, and we can see you moving like stop animation. So give it a go, and let's see if we get anywhere.
Okay, so I'm a vegan for over 20 years, and I do some of my own growing. And I also write for Growing Green International, and Tony, of course, is the editor. And I saw in the newsletter that they wanted us to send photographs and stories of what we had done over the autumn and over the harvest season. So, like a journalist, I wrote a bit of a photo story. And I believe that this is going to be on the Vegan Organic Network website. And it's basically all about the adventures that I've had in my kitchen with foraging, as well as with the veg that I have grown in my backyard, like radishes and parsnips and carrots and other stuff. And it's been a real good adventure, and I'm really happy with what it is. And being a certificated vegan chef, I love being in my kitchen. It's like, with me, it's a distraction. It's where I get creative. It's where I come into my own. I'm totally obsessed with food. And so what happens is I go in there and I invent recipes. And Tony's got some photographs of what I have invented. And also, it's going to be on the website, I believe. And it's healthy. You've grown yourself. You've actually achieved something, and you've incorporated this into your organic diet, your vegan diet, and healthy, and you just simply benefit from it. So what more can I say?
Brilliant. Thanks, Colleen. So to sign up for our newsletter, it'll come through there. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Take care. Bye-bye. Sorry about that, Colleen. It cut off a bit early. Right. I was trolling Facebook earlier, and I just come across something, because one of the questions we do get asked is, where does the fertility come from with veganic growing? You know, you need animal droppings, shall we say. And I came across this, and I suppose the author, and she said we could happily use this. And I think it's this highly detailed diagram will help explain to other people exactly the issue. So have a look and see what you think. So I think that really sums it up. There is no fertility created in the animal. Fertility is in the ground already, and obviously using nitrogen fixers and deep rooting crops, we can get access to that. But I thought this was a very useful little graphic. All right. So on to the next question. Here we go. Oh, goodness me. It's like syrup at the moment. We're here. Can the panel suggest some good overwinter nitrogen fixers that will survive a reasonable hardy winter in Liverpool? And that's from Susie. So anyone like to take that? Oh, it's gone very quiet.
I think Graham might have already answered this a little bit earlier. He was talking about, can you hear me? Yeah, I think Graham probably, if he's still there, answered this earlier when he was, I can't remember which other question he was answering, but he was talking about field beans and agricultural mustard. And
so they would survive happily up in that sort of area.
I don't know. I don't know. Graham would know that better than me. I'm not sure about the climate. I imagine so, yes, but
yeah.
Particularly field beans, I would have thought.
Thanks, Joe. Graham, would you concur with that?
Sorry, I was on mute. Sorry, I got distracted. Sorry, can you show the question? Something was going on here, so I got a bit distracted.
Basically, this has pretty much been answered before.
Oh yeah,
they would survive.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, field beans. You might get away with putting in a bit of crimson clover, white clover this time. It might be a bit late now, I think. I don't know. Maybe Matthew could confirm or otherwise. But yeah, I'd say definitely field beans. I mean, they're pretty hardy. They'll kind of put up with anything really, and do a good job of fixing the nitrogen for the spring. Of course, the important thing is to kind of cut them down before the beans form. Otherwise, the nitrogen simply goes towards creating the beans for next year, as opposed to going into the soil. But definitely, yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Graham. That's obviously it's something that different crops, different places, but it's good to know that they're hardy enough to go places like that. So we have another question. I have a problem with mealybugs on them also. Okay. I tried. Yes, I don't know on that one. I've tried leaving them for the spiders who are doing their very best and encouraging lacewings, etc. But I don't think that's enough. Can I ask if wiping and washing off the mealybugs will be sufficient? One tree has lost a lot of leaves and the branches are dying back. Thank you, Imogen. So my apologies for the missing first bit of the question. I have no idea where that's gone. And what other options do we have? Anyone here like to have a go at that? Everyone's looking studious.
Yeah, I'll say I'll have a quick go at it.
Thank you, Matthew.
When I wrote this book, I launched a campaign called Hug a Slug about being nice to pests, so-called pests. So maybe we can launch Hug a Mealybug, but they're not very easy to hug, a bit small. But I mean, you can get predator. You can buy predators to eat them, but I mean, I kind of wouldn't do that. I mean, it's just, sort of hygiene stuff, really. Check the plants before they go in, and then remove infected leaves and plants. I mean, that would be the best way to sort of prevention rather than cure. But yeah, I mean, there is ladybirds and wasps that you can get to eat them, but I mean, I wouldn't go there. But I don't know what Joe and Graham think.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. Yeah, I certainly wouldn't buy anything like that. I'm going to be buying creatures. But I wonder, are there any companion plants anyone knows of that might help distract them at all? Anyone there?
I guess anything that attracts. So I haven't come across the problem, but anything that attracts, any plant that attracts those beneficial predators, those other insects that we want to, the lacewings and the which I think she's already doing that, but obviously still got a problem. So it's difficult to know without knowing what else she's planted nearby, what kind of system it's in. Is she on an allotment with other plants nearby on other pieces of the allotment? So yeah, I think it's about attracting the insects, the predator insects, who will deal with those mealybugs or things. Shout out to the mealybug.
Thank you, Joe. I mean, is it possible as well that there are other trees in the area or other plants in the area that are attracting the bugs that we don't want, and maybe they can be removed? Is that something that happens, do you think? Oh, possibly not.
I don't know anything about mealybugs, I'm afraid. But I'm going to go and look. I'm going to go and find out. I'm going to go and check out Matthew's book. Yeah, looks like it. We maybe delay that question to another session, and we'll go and do some research.
Sounds like a good plan.
I think by and large, as Joe and Matthew said, it's like increasing habitat for predators and things like that are just going to take care of these things, within the natural ecosystem of the garden, rather than our human interventions that might be. I know quite often, if there are these kind of issues, and in inverted commas, pests are becoming a bit of a problem. Maybe there's something out of balance within the system as a whole, rather than, that might the mealybugs. And again, I don't know a huge amount about mealybugs either, but if there's a surfeit of mealybugs, maybe that's suggesting there's an imbalance somewhere in the system. So it might be a symptom rather than the actual problem. So it might be actually worth thinking, systemically about the garden as a whole, as an ecosystem, and how is that kind of functioning. So, but yeah, by companion planting, providing plenty of habitats for predators, providing things like ponds that are going to attract in hoverflies and frogs and toads and things like that. That you'll have a functioning, multifunctional, multi-element ecosystem. So.
Brilliant. So very much a permaculture approach, of course, which is a very logical approach. Thank you, Graham.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering if mealybugs wear little coats and hide away and stuff like this, because no one seems to have seen them. Perhaps we're just lucky and haven't got us yet. So, okay, we've got another question here. And this is, I want to grow some greens over winter in my cheap greenhouse. I presume it's one of these little plastic ones you get from Wilco's, etc. Does anyone have any tips to help me succeed, such as plant varieties, keeping plants warm, etc.? And that's from Vicky in Norfolk. So, who would like a bite of that? Okay, I'll have a little bite of the first bit. I've used water in my greenhouses to keep things warmer overnight and cooler in the day. So that very much helps with a small greenhouse, because there's no thermal mass in a greenhouse apart from the plant pots and the soil they contain and other stuff. So old pop bottles filled with water, washed up bottles, whatever you've got to hand. Water contains or stores large amounts of energy for its mass. It's one of the, I think, contains 4 times the amount of heat energy per mass as compared to rock, for instance. So it's very good like that. So that would be my first suggestion. Anyone else like to chip in on plant varieties that are for overwintering greens? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you can grow winter lettuce, various varieties of that. Got to be honest, in the winter, I don't really bother, because it's, you feel like you need heat, and I just think, the energy put in and what you get out. I mean, I'm not doing this as a sort of, to be self-sufficient. So I'm kind of doing it very much on a sort of hobby gardener basis. So, in the winter, I just like going down there and sort of burrowing stuff around, and I'm not too bothered if not much grows. So the amount of effort you put in the winter, the amount you get out, I'm kind of a bit dubious about that sort of ratio, but I don't know what the others think.
Thank you, Matthew. Anyone else like to have the experience of growing winter greens yourselves? Anyone?
I think I'd echo what Matthew said. Really, it's kind of, particularly if it's just one of those kind of little cheap Wilkinson's type plastic greenhouses. I think if you get a very mild winter, you might be okay. But I think if we get anything like at all harsh, I think you might be putting in a lot of effort for not a huge amount of return. If you've got the space, you might be better off putting it. I mean, it's probably a bit late for this year, but putting in things like kale and things like that actually can provide some, a degree of leafy greens over the winter, and of course things like Brussels sprouts, obviously, which are good for overwintering. But I'd echo that it's a lot of work for very little return, possibly, in terms of kind of salad plants and things like that.
Brilliant. Okay, that's.
I was going to ask a question, Tony. I was going to ask, could you start, start off some perennial greens in there, ready to plant out, or, I'm just asking that of Matthew and Graham, really. Always thinking more on the perennial side rather than. I mean, we are doing some annuals, but our plan is not to be eventually, and we've not in a greenhouse. We've sown winter lettuce and lamb's lettuce, corn salad and endive and chicory and all sorts outside in the last, kind of a few weeks ago. But I'm just thinking in a small greenhouse to kind of maximize its use, really. Could you start off some things over winter ready to plant out?
Sounds like a good idea. It's something I was wondering as well, that it might be a better use of that space. And as you say, the light energies, the levels of light are much, much lower, and obviously the temperature is much, much lower. So you do get a vastly decreased yield. So yeah, that's true. So we now have Dan the man, who is going to give us the results to our competition. Let me just add him. And here we go. Dan, how are you doing?
Hi, folks.
Hi, Dan.
Hello from Manchester.
Hello, Dan.
Hi, everybody. Good to be here on the show. Right, so we had a competition at the Harvest Fair. We asked people to send in photographs of things they'd foraged or they'd grown or something to do with Harvest Festival. And we've had 20 entries. We've had some great entries. So the winning entry, last week we asked people to vote. So the end of the entries, the competition was on Saturday, and then we asked people to vote. We put all the photos out there in the newsletter, and we've had 18 people voting, and each person has voted for their 2 favourite photographs. And the winning photograph got 8 votes. So they got 8 out of 36 votes, which is pretty good. And the number 2 photograph got 6 out of 36. And let's have a look. Let's see if we can bring the... So in second place was photograph number 18, and you might recognize it. Here we go. Ta-da! Anyone
Hooray.
recognise that one?
Oh, that's nice.
Isn't a fix, by the way. It's a very nice photograph of some veganic veg in a wheelbarrow, and I think it's made by a quite well-known veganic farmer who's not too far away. So, second prize goes to Joe Kidd, who happens to be on the panel today.
Is that allowed, Dan? I don't know if that's allowed. I suppose if it's
I don't know.
voting.
Well, you got the vote. It wasn't. People just voted for the photographs. They didn't know who it was.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
So well done,
Thank you very
Joe.
much. Thank you. I'm very pleased with our
Okey
wheelbarrow veg.
dokey,
That's all we got, nothing else. No, that's a joke. That's just a little sample.
Then in first place by a landslide was this photograph, which did people recognize that one? Somebody else quite well known in the vegan community, in the Vegan Organic Network community, took this photograph, and this is a photograph by John Dale. So well done, John. Very good photograph. So I think what happened is the person who got first prize gets the first choice, because we've got 3 books to give away. So the person who gets the first prize gets the first choice. Second prize will get the second choice. Then the third book is, we had 18 people judging on the photographs. Let's take that off. We had 18 people judging on the photographs. So I've written down all their names. Whoops, Bennett. I've written down all their names on some bits of paper. We got Leather, Bray, Tim Dale, Tracy Lean, Jenny Fernandez, Mitchell, Bennett. Anyway, we've got loads of people all on these bits of paper here. I've got my hat here, my Vegans Are Heroes hat. So I'm going to put them into the hat. So here you go. This is real. We haven't fixed it, honest. And Cherry is going to come and draw the winner out. Cherry, where is she? Oh, here she is. Big round of applause for Cherry.
Cherry.
Hi.
There you go. So there you go. You like to choose? Not looking. Here we go. The winner is Jenny Fernandez. Way, well done, Jenny. You're the winner of the third. We will email you with the book that you've won. So big round of applause for Jenny. Thank you, Cherry. Thanks everybody. That's the end of my bit of the show. Over to you, Tony. Thanks very much.
There you go. Right, so well, that's pretty much the end of the show for today. So I'd just like to say thank you very much, Joe Kidd. Thanks very much for joining.
Thank you, Tony. Lovely to be here. Thanks.
Hope
Always
to see you again
entertaining.
Excellent. And Graham, thank you very much
Thanks,
for your
Tony.
entertainment. And we're all going to rush off and watch your video now.
Enjoy.
Hope to see you again soon, mate. Take
Cheers. Take care.
care. Matthew, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, Tony. Stay away from those artichokes.
I certainly will. And I hope to see you again sometime. Take care. Right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. We would very much appreciate your help if you can share, like, and hopefully join the Vegan Organic Network as well at veganorganic.net, or sign up for our free newsletter. Just go to our website. It's just from as little as £13 a year, which is obviously, even nowadays, is a very low amount. And we'd very much welcome your company in making a kinder and a more chemical-free world. So hopefully we'll see you there. Take care and see you at the next show, which is on the 26th of November. We have Tolly, a very famous farmer, and a couple of people whose names I've just forgotten. Oh well. Anyway, you see him on the end credits. So with that, farewell and see you in 2 weeks' time. Bye.
How close can you hold in this love for the land?
see where the poison runs, to speak up for the silent ones.